Hello there, Seraphim17 once again. This is my Bioshock Survivor Difficulty Brass Balls walkthrough. Or if you're on PlayStation 4, I chose the impossible. Because it turns out that the achievements and the trophies are different, which is really dumb, and it makes me angry, but it is what it is. This is Neptune's Bounty. This is part 1 of 3. This is a long level. We're introduced to the gene banks and the shops that actually might be a little bit more helpful these days, because we've got a little bit more to do in them, which is cool. We've seen them before, but now is when it starts getting going. And we're also going to be introduced to the spider splicers, which I think they look way better on this game than they do in the second game. The second game, they all look like weird, long-armed, crazy, mutated dudes. Like that guy from Goonies. I was not a fan of that. Up there is some electric buck. You want to get that. It's fantastic against big daddies and maybe armoured things. Not so good against the splicers, I find. You want to definitely stick with buckshot or explosive shells for those guys. But I really like Neptune's Bounty. This is one of those creepy moments too, where the petals are falling from the sky and you kind of being stalked by a spider splicer. But don't worry, because the spider splicers seem to be one of the enemies in this game that doesn't get the biggest boost in its HP later on. Because I've mentioned in this walkthrough that if you follow it, you're going to see me using telekinesis, and telekinesis is incredibly powerful. This is our first Rosie, by the way, and I'm not going to take pictures of her because I'm an idiot, and I don't know why I didn't do that, but before you take her on, I would recommend that you make sure that all the turrets are dealt with. And that's what I'm going to try and do here, and I do this with a measure of success. It's not my best performance here, but I get the job done. I do think that these particular Rosies are rather challenging, and they're challenging because once again we don't quite have what we would need to have a comfortable fight with them. And then combine that with the very interesting way in how Rosies react in this game. So, I don't know how she does it, and I call her a she because of course, Rosie sounds like a girl's name, doesn't it? But she can do some fucking wanted bullets, man. She can shoot you through cover, she can shoot you around cover, she can do all kinds of magic bullet nonsense, and there are times when it feels kind of bullshitty. But you can also get her into a position where you can shoot her and she can't shoot you, so there's a lot of ways you can exploit it, and particularly here, being underneath these boardwalks, or whatever you want to call them, can be a pretty good position for getting damage on the Rosie without her being able to hit you too convincingly. And that's how I'm going to beat her, because I'm going to kill her once I've cleared this courtyard. But the issue is, it's one of those strategies where, because the AI is so voracious and she's so active, it's very difficult to get her stuck. Bouncers you can get stuck really easily if you know how to do it. It happens all the time. But the bouncer can also be stun-locked. Rosie's cannot be stun-locked, I don't think, because of the way she works. Because she has to, she can attack from any distance, there's no priority of, I'm going to close the distance to get to you, and in that, I'm not going to swing and attack. She will attack the entire time she's alive. And she can throw grenades too, and the grenades are wizard grenades. I have a piece of footage that you'll probably never see, and it's a shame, where I'm behind a piece of cover, she throws a grenade at me, and it sticks on the piece of cover that I'm on, as if I'd thrown it. Like, there is no way she could have stuck it where it sticks. It's wonderful. And it just goes to show that there's some serious magic happening behind the scenes, and additionally, there's a lot of bugs too. This game is quite buggy. I'm going to talk a lot more about it later on because I've come across things I've never seen in Bioshock, and I played the shit out of this game when it first came out back in the day. I'm getting into a fight here against a couple of splicers, which is really not to my best intentions. It's not a good choice, but I didn't die, guys, so I didn't have an opportunity to redo all of this, and I think this is actually a nitro splicer just here, and for some reason he wasn't throwing his bombs. You need to be careful with those nitro splicers because they're very dangerous. The most dangerous splicer, I think, in the game is the leadhead splicer. And you might be wondering, why? And it's because later on, when you get to Hephaestus, and Hephaestus onwards, they get the biggest buff for some reason, and I don't know why. I can remember on hard, they got a bit of a buff, so you generally had to hit them maybe twice with the telekinesis to kill them. And that's okay, because certain enemies do later on in the game get a little tougher, so it takes a couple more telekinesises, but I think on Survivor, it's way different. Because I threw 3 bodies at someone, and unless they're a boss, like a Frolic, Splicer boss, or something very specific, I don't remember ever having to throw that many bodies at people with telekinesis. So there's... Oh, this is a bug as well. For some reason, I could not get that body to come to me correctly because it was colliding on something, so I couldn't get it to fire right. And now it's fixed, and there you go, instant kill. Wonderful technique. There's a... Is that Rosie throwing grenades at me? No, that's a nitro splicer. We're good. And there's a splicer just there. So... yeah, this is a very hectic fight. And as long as you stay on top of your heals, you should be okay. If you can get these enemies to attack Rosie, then you'll have a big advantage. But this is kind of balls to the wall, and there's not much of the game that's like this, where it is this direct, in your face, and I kind of like that, because one of the things I like a lot about Bioshock is the strategy that's in the game. And somebody left a comment mentioning they didn't realise there was this much strategy in it, and it just goes to show, doesn't it, that you can play this game in so many ways that you don't need it to be successful. But of course, when you come to Survivor, it's a little bit different, because on Survivor, the enemies do a lot of damage, they take a lot of damage, it's kind of all or nothing. And I noticed in Proving Grounds, at the end of the game, I saw Darkside Phil shoot the crossbow with an incendiary bolt at a Splicer's torso, and instantly kill it. I tried that earlier that day, and I can remember hitting them with maybe 2 or 3, so it goes to show the difference between hard and Survivor. There's definitely an increase there, and I noticed it probably most against the bouncers in Frolic. The elite bouncer, oh my goodness, I never remember on hard having any trouble against those enemies, and until I started using the stun lock, that thing was killing me instantly with 1 hit. And it wasn't even the big ones either. It wasn't the charges he does. It wasn't any of the fancy stuff. It's when you're close and he just kind of goes, ugh, get away from me kind of thing. Instant death, full life. Absolutely ridiculous. Very powerful. But as I've mentioned, I've got a move that keeps him perma-stunned, and it's very unfair for the poor chap. But it takes a little bit of execution to understand how to reload and how to dodge his dash. It's not complete immunity. But this is my bouncer, my Rosie kill anyway. You'll notice I hit her with all the explosive barrels and she's down to barely any life, and then I just have to finish her off, which is kind of harder than it seems. So I was hoping she would stay up here, but she goes towards the ramp to shoot me underneath the boardwalk, which is really clever. The pathfinding on this enemy is kind of legit. She's now going to move left and right trying to hit me, so I'm going to hit her with the electric book and try and do some damage, and hopefully not take too much damage. The electric book will give you a stun on the Big Daddy. It's not the longest of stuns, it's a couple seconds, but you can reset that stun by attacking, which I feel is bullshit, personally. When you stun at Big Daddy with electric book, whatever you touch it with next will make it auto-recover, and I find it strange that that's a feature, because you would think, wouldn't you, that the purpose of the stun is to enable you to deal damage with impunity, but it's not. But there goes the Rosie, and we get to rescue the little sister. I haven't edited out some of these as well. I was going to edit out all the grab the kiddie's face and then explosion, which is, I don't know, a bit risque, would you not think? There's some symbolism going on there that I do not approve of. But we got the Adam, and it's all good. It's all gravy, baby. And now we can loot this area and continue onwards. So the mechanic there that the game was explaining is there is a moral choice in this game between saving little sisters and snapping the neck and sucking out the juice. If you kill them and you get the slug, you get more Adam, but if you save them, you get less Adam, and Tenenbaum gives you gifts. So I'm going to go for the Tenenbaum gifts because it's been a long time since I've saved the sisters, so why not? There's also an achievement and a trophy for, I think, setting them all free, which is what I'm going to try to do. Or, like, beat the game without being evil or something. And I think it's worth 100G as well, so it's a pretty big one considering it's not that difficult to do. But I'm going to be doing a lot of exploring here. Am I going to break the machine? There's a chance I might break the machine. Or I might think about coming back here for a heal. So we broke it. We pick up the kit. And we can continue onwards. So at any point now, when you go back through an area that you've already been through, you have the opportunity to spawn in extra splicers. And this is a feature that will just waste ammo and cause, you know, minuscule damage to you. But it can also be something that adds up. So one of the better ideas, if you know what you're doing, is to rush. If you're playing the hardest difficulty, I would expect you know where you're going. This walkthrough is going to be quite unique in the sense that this was my first playthrough of this game in a few years, and I wanted to explore quite a lot and, you know, pick up all the goodies and see what's all in the nooks and the crannies. And normally when I make a walkthrough, I'm generally pushing forward to the point almost all the time. And if you do that in Bioshock, you can alleviate a lot of encounters, save a lot of ammunition. But I'm going to explore to my best of my abilities a lot of the places. I'm going to take my time, and I never have a problem really with ammunition. Because the flow of Bioshock is quite fun and interesting in as much that telekinesis is going to guide you through the first half of the game if you use it, because it's amazingly strong up to Hephaestus, and then in Hephaestus you have to hit some enemies twice, so you definitely feel the deficit there, even though hitting them twice with telekinesis is just as quick as hitting them once, and it's still really, really good at that point. Then when you get up to Apollo Square, there are moments where you have to hit them 3 to 4 times, and that's where the drop-off for using telekinesis can kind of be argued that you want to work it out of the cycle of your attacks. Even though you can still get one-hit kills on certain splicers, you just have to be aware which ones are going to take a bigger beating and which ones won't. So you can still use it, and I'm going to implement it on the Proving Grounds when I protect the little sister. I used telekinesis there just as effective as it was at the very beginning in the medical pavilion. So it's still a move that can consistently do work for you. It's just you want to, at that point, start working in other aspects of your offense. And the great news is you have a way better offense then. And it leads you with a few strategies. The first one that I always recommend is carrying the sentries with you. The sentries are so good. However, they are idiots in this game. I don't remember them being as stupid as they are. The amount of babysitting I had to do to get them to come with me, the amount of times I got into a firefight and they just vanished and left me on my own, and I was like, guys, like, what the fuck? I could have done with some distraction, some cover fire, you know, please. They just left, and I don't know why. And what would happen is as soon as the fight ended, they'd come back. There were just weird moments of them being utter useless assholes. So it's a strategy that I recommend you use at your own peril. And then the one thing that happens the most, which I cannot stress enough the importance of awareness for this, is when you try to run away from a bad situation and they're behind you. The one aspect of this game that has aged the worst is the collision. I would go on to say that the collision in this game, at times, because it's always rare that it happens, but it's little sisters, it's big daddies, and it's the sentry bots. Those three things can make this game feel broken, unplayable at times. And I never thought I would sit here saying this to you, because I think this is a great game, and I was having a ton of fun. But there are instances, because of survivor difficulty, where you have to be very mobile, or you pay the ultimate price of death, where I could not move because of circumstances that I just explained, and I either got killed or I got so mad that I had to reload because I didn't want it to happen again. There were moments where I just turned the robots off and never went back to them, and you will never see those robots in active service because they were so fucking annoying and blocking me into situations I didn't want to be in. There's going to be a crossfade coming up here, guys, mainly because I stopped playing. And when I resumed, it resumed me from a different area. And I don't know why it did that. I think I must have saved at a different point and I didn't save here. So you're going to see me at this doorway. I'm thinking about hacking that panel. And then did I link it? I don't know. It might happen later on, but there's some ammunition under the boardwalk here. I think it's some shells and like a med kit. So feel free to grab them. At this point, we have an abundance of machine gun ammunition. So I recommend that you work it into your armaments. Because it's not a bad gun, and it's great at putting pressure on enemies and doing damage that adds up quite quickly. It's never going to be your go-to weapon because it's just not good enough. And lo and behold, we have another Rosie. So this big bundle of explosives here is your key to doing very big damage to the Rosie. If you can hit her with all of these, you will do considerable amounts of damage. This is another area where I think telekinesis... look at this bullshit, dude. This is something that really irritates me too, and it shouldn't have worked this way. There needed to be a priority system in this game. How many times have you tried to pick something up that you wanted with telekinesis and you've grabbed somebody's fucking hat? I don't want a fedora. I want something that's going to kill people. And I appreciate that it's rather funny and you're having a good laugh at my expense, game, but I want the explosive. I don't want your mask. I don't want some feathered bullshit masquerade nonsense. I want a tool of destruction. Really frustrating. And it's the type of stuff that, you know, if you play this game on normal, you might never notice it and never come across it. But when you play games on hardest difficulties, the little shit builds up, the little shit kills you. And it can be easy to sit there and be like, oh, you know, you're being a little too critical, it's not that bad. But, you know, if it's the difference between life or death and it gets you killed, it soon feels like injustices are happening, and it didn't need to work that way. All it could have done, priority system. The good stuff, number 1 priority. The not so good stuff, number 2. I don't mind picking up a fedora afterwards. I just don't want to do it when I'm trying to throw a brick at someone. And just then, an endless supply of concrete from that pile of rubble. Like, what is it doing? Really, really stupid. But we managed to do it. It wasn't so bad. And here's me doing the upgrade station. So there's a lot of abilities here that I recommend that you can try and see if you like them. Winter's Blast is great. It's essentially what I use electricity for. The only difference is it's better for freezing the pipes in the hacking minigame if you're not so good at hacking. I don't use it in this playthrough because I quite enjoy the challenge of hacking. Because you do so much of it, I don't mind it when it's quite challenging because it keeps it a bit more interesting. Target Dummy can be really good at confusing splicers and enabling you to have a couple of seconds of breather room. Enrage is another great one. Throw it at somebody, they'll go attack a Big Daddy. Or throw it at a Big Daddy, you'll go attack somebody. You know, you can use it really intelligently. A good use for Enrage is when you fight the final boss. When he summons splicers, chuck it on one of the splicers, and then it gives the final boss something else to contest with. It can be really useful. Sonic Boom, I don't think is very good in this game. You can have some fun with it, but I just don't think it's that great. In Bioshock 2, I think they made it a lot better. I'm going to prioritise Extra Slots and Eve, because that's the ones that I really like. And you can also notice that I always seem to have an abundance of Adam, because there's just not that many abilities that I needed. And I'm going to finish the game with the same HP I have now. And it's going to have 2 interesting effects. The first one, of course, is it's going to make the game a little tougher, because I can't take as many hits. But additionally, you know when Fontaine is sapping your life, and you have to go and get that elixir to fix yourself? You don't lose any HP, because he's removing the upgrades. And if you don't upgrade, he's got nothing to remove, so you're cock blocking, which I think is really funny. But there's a couple of items on the shelf just there that glisten in the night, so pick those bad boys up. And just explore, guys. I can't get across how much fun I had on this game just in this world, just looking around for things. I think this is a great example of how you make a world interesting and worthwhile your time. Like, you're always finding cool stuff in this game. You're always finding things that have some kind of point and message in the game. You know, I come back down here again thinking I've missed something. And I haven't gone in that room, so I have technically missed things, but I'm not that bothered. But I'm trying to be thorough and pick up machine gun rounds now. I've used a few. Which is always good to do, you know, being frugal is important. But just looking around this game, I noticed I'd spend hours in levels, like an hour and a half to beat a level that I know I could have beaten in about 20 minutes, but the exploration is so fun and so rewarding. You always feel like... I've played this game maybe 5 or 6 times, something like that, but it still feels great because they made such a fascinating place to run around in. And I love that. I really do. It's a special game. And Bioshock 2 lost a lot of that for me because you were moving around it for arbitrary reasons, where in this game I really felt like you were exploring rather than, you know, just going and trying to find the next area to use a little sister and get a big sister and all that. You know, my biggest criticism of Bioshock 2 is the way that they structured the game. But this is an interesting encounter coming up, and I recommend that you save, because you're going to get attacked by a spider splicer, and this is no normal spider splicer. This is on roids, and what's that fucking... Is it called crocodile, that drug in Russia that eats your skin? This dude is on some shit. He's retard strong and just not very fun. And the funny thing here is, it's kind of a timed battle, or I think it's a certain amount of damage or something like that, but it's not a fight you can actually win, I don't think. And I hate fights you can't win. So immediately, I throw a body at her, it does no damage at all, and I take a massive hit, which I'm still bitter about, and then she goes on the roof and starts throwing shit at me. So I'm firing some stuff. Oh, I don't think I had the camera, that's why I didn't take a picture of the Rosie. I'll forgive myself. And then she gets stuck up on the roof in the corner, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to shoot her with the Tommy gun, and I just feather the trigger and shoot her. Look at the damage she takes. And I know the game at this point, they do it intentionally so that she can't be killed, because she comes on later on and she's arguably tougher than the Big Daddies. in this early encounter because she's got so much life, but just look at this. Every bullet is barely doing anything. And I don't remember her being this tough. I don't remember having this much durability. So I definitely think Survivor has made some big changes when it comes to certain resiliences on enemies. But for the most, I don't think the difficulty's that bad. You know, a lot of people have been bigging it up, and it really isn't deserving of that. And I was curious too if they'd put Survivor in Bioshock 2, but I just don't think they have. That's the end of that sequence though, and Peach Wilkins is going to send us on a bit of a quest now, which is the beginning of Bioshock's infatuation with fetch 3 things and proceed, which I've already mentioned I'm not the biggest fan of it, but at this point I don't think it's that bad because you're still interacting with interesting people who are asking for the generic 3 things, with an F of course, because the English language is so terrible. But he gives you the grenade launcher, which I find to be very baffling considering he's going to put us into a death trap later on, which we're going to overcome and kill him for doing. But at this point, it still seems like he might actually help you, the paranoid geezer. So he wants us to take pictures of spider splicers, and I think he's given us the camera. So the camera works in a pretty interesting way. You can take 3 pictures of an enemy, and then you have to take a picture of a different enemy because it won't count. Oh, watch this, by the way. Look at the difference now. It takes 3 lightning in the water to kill them, which is an idea of how much tougher they are now. And I don't know if that's because I don't know why that is. I think that should still kill people, personally. You know, that's one of the areas that I would definitely have tweaked if I'd have designed this, because in my opinion, the whole purpose of water and shocking the water is to get that free kill. And I think it should always be like that. It's the same with the petroleum on the floor. I think if you set a fire that with incinerate, that should be a kill. The enemy should not be able to continue to attack. They should run around like an idiot until they eventually burn out, and that should be how that works. Because that's the whole point of it. It complements the plasmid. There's his hat, always useful. Should be taking pictures of these. Do I not have the camera yet? I don't know. Then again, I should be using the camera. I think you pick it up later. He gave us the grenade launcher, and then we pick it up a little bit later. But back onto the camera. So every time you research something, it gives you a certain amount of score. When you fill the bar for the research, you're going to get a bonus against the enemies. You get tonics for doing it. You get damage bonuses. It's something that you have to get into the habit of doing. Is it a little bit arbitrary and annoying that you swap between it? There are times when you can get stuck with the camera on when you're trying to swap to a weapon, and you can get in and put in a bad place. Definitely. I do think it's kind of clunky. But the idea of researching something to gain advantages is great. I really like that idea. So I'm a big fan of it as a mechanic. And if you can get into the habit of doing it and max everything out early, you have the maximum advantage for the rest of the game. So you want to really do that. And it can give you some great advantages. Like one of them is the ability to do more damage with the wrench against the big daddies. So if you're somebody who's speccing towards wrench, the sooner you get that, the better. You know, you're going to get some really good advantages for it. But I'm walking around with slightly low life because I'm confident I'm saving in this game. You should be saving too. It's just the best way to play. And we're exploring, we're thinning the numbers of dudes, and we're following the quest arrow, which for the most, the quest arrow is really good. There are opportunities where it can be a bit of a retard, but it only ever happened to me once. And that was in Hephaestus. Because unfortunately, it doesn't point you towards the loot that you have to pick up. And that's one of those missions where I explored the entire area first before I went to the mission, and then when I went to the mission it wanted me to pick up shit in the environment in all the areas that I'd explored. So if I'd have done the mission to begin with, all of my exploration would have given me the keys to the next area, and instead I had to do it twice. So I would love to edit that so it doesn't look like I do it twice, but it's just not how that's going to work because I did way too much stuff on those first runs. But here's a little bit of a secret, one of the caches you can find. I love that in first-person shooters, and it reminds me of the good old days of Doom and Duke Nukem and Turok and everything, where if you move off the beaten path, you can find really cool stuff. That is something I hope we never lose, because it's really good. Have I gone back down here again? What am I looking for now? Oh, there's an audio diary. I'm just making sure I haven't missed anything. But I was talking about clipping. And I mentioned the game can feel broken, which is a very bold statement in a game that I think runs really well all considered. It doesn't load as quick as it should for a 10-year-old game, which I think is baffling considering Deus Ex, Mankind Divided, loads quicker than this game. That's just come out. Oh, that's an enemy, by the way. See him? I wish that worked. I think the telekinesis and the physics is a little goofy. There are times when you can pick up a body and get it trapped behind an enemy, so you can never get it in a position to use it effectively. I think that's a little unfortunate, and I wish it would have been tweaked, but I suppose it works 99% of the time, so that's better than, 60% or something. Couple of enemies here. We've got the shotgun, though. The shotgun is incredibly powerful. My aim is perhaps not the best with it, but we get there in the end. There's also a wicked auto-aim on this game. I would even recommend you turn it off, because the aiming on Bioshock has always been tricky. The reason they've added this auto-aim is because aiming in this game was way tougher back in the day, because it wasn't that great of a first-person shooter. It's got good ideas, it's got good mechanics, but fundamentally as a shooter, it wasn't as smooth or as precise as it should have been. And now, to compensate, what they've done in the remaster is they've upped the auto-aim. They've made it kind of ridiculous. You can feel it pulling like a damn Hoover. And if you don't like that, you've got to turn it off. If you're not bothered by it, you can deal with it, that's fine. But you can turn it off. It is in the menus, and I think that's a good choice. But back to the broken debate. So, when you become a big daddy, I actually got told off by my mum. She was in the bath at the time. Because I was swearing at this game rather loudly. And I didn't swear at any point up until I became a big daddy. So the first thing that I think about that section that ruins the game is that when you get that fishbulb head on and you can't see because they essentially give you like a fisheye lens and they black out the corners of the screen, that is one of the most egregious mechanics ever. I hate it. It should be a toggleable option because it's just... The moment that happened, I wanted to stop playing the game and I rushed through the rest of the game to get it off because I hated it. I wondered to myself it was funny because I always remember Bioshock fondly up until the end of the game where I just think it gets a bit dull. I've explained why, I'm not going to go back into it. You either like it or you don't. I think the end of this game is nowhere near as good as the start. I think the start is the high point. I think it should be the reverse. The game should get better, 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 better. That's how it should work. But it doesn't often do that. When you become a big daddy on this game, the game becomes miserable because not only are you slow as fuck and is your vision shitty, but you clip. And you're escorted by a little sister who's clippable. Whoever designed the remaster and the original game needed to put in some kind of no-clip function on the little sisters because when you become a big daddy, there are moments where you cannot move. And in a game where you can die this quick, you have to be able to move. So at the end of the game, when you're in the thinnest corridors they could physically design, I am cursing up a storm because I couldn't get past the little sister and I needed to make an intelligent retreat, or I needed to strafe, and I couldn't move. So you're going to see footage of me standing like a twat, blocking with my face, inwardly getting really angry. And I was swearing at the little sister all day, and there's a point where when I'm following her, I'm smacking her with the wrench for about 10 minutes, because I was so mad at the damn game. And it's one of those things where you don't remember those moments of why is it like this. And all the way through this game I felt that the collision has been okay. There's moments where it's awkward, but for the most it works great for a game that came back when it did. But when you become a big daddy, nope. They put you in the thinnest areas. No. And it might sound like a very specific thing to be angry at, but that to me... That is how you ruin a game in 0 to 60, because it's just miserable. But the great news is, once you become a big daddy and you do that proving ground area, you're on Atlas and he takes off the helmet, so you go back to normal, and then it's okay again. But that one area leaves such a bad taste in my mouth. It really does. And it sounds petty, and I'm sorry if you think it is, but that to me is just horrible. And in the second game, I don't think it's that much of a problem, so once again, you've got to give props where props are due. I think they did a really good job, but the collision... It's not often that I swear enough and loud enough for my parents to be like, hang on a second dear, can you calm it down a bit? But they did, because I think my words were, move you fucking bitch. I think that's what I said, rather loudly. And my mum's like, Christopher! Something like that. But what can you say? I was going to die, man. And I was so mad. I was really mad. I had to turn it off for a bit. I was that mad. And I don't get that mad at games that aren't God Hand these days. So you can tell I was really irked. But we're coming up on the end of the video here, and I'm also going to be hacking this turret. You want to hack this light here, because this light is going to do so much work. In the next video, you're not going to be able to hear what my character's doing, because all you can hear is the sentry bots this light sends out to all the splicers that randomly spawn. It's so interesting the way the world works, where it populates the random dudes. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope you're enjoying the Bioshock. There's plenty more to come. And as always, you take care now.